breaking developments on the COVID front this afternoon. Some Americans will soon be able to get a third COVID-19 booster shot.
And the CDC says pregnant women are at a higher risk of the Delta variant and should get vaccinated. Lots to talk about today with Dr. Zorba Pastor, and we'll be taking your calls coming up in the next segment. Hi, Zorba. How you doing?
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you as well. Let's first talk about the booster. Will everyone need a booster?
No, not at this point. At this point, the CDC has said maybe what we should do is give boosters to people who have autoimmune diseases and other issues that may compromise their immunity. Now, they have not given guidelines as to who those people are. I would expect it's going to be somebody on chemotherapy. It might be people, for instance, who have a kidney transplant, heart transplant, things like that. Whether or not it should be given to people, for instance, who are just on steroids, for instance, for maybe adrenal insufficiency, that is an issue the Feds have not answered yet. But once again, they're looking at things. They're really looking at Israel, which has started to give a booster for those people who they think never developed good antibodies in the first place. And again, we don't have a blood test to know what antibodies are good antibodies. It's in evolution. CDC has taken its first step.
Let's talk about pregnant women. They're recommending now that they get the vaccine.
Absolutely. Only 1 out of 4 women, from what I've read, who are pregnant have actually gotten the vaccine. We now know the vaccine is really important. It's really important for pregnant women not to get COVID when they're pregnant, because it may be deleterious for them and it may be deleterious for the baby. And so we now have very good data that shows that it's safe in pregnant women, and pregnant women really should consider this. It's an extremely important thing. We have more data now. I have people who say, let's wait until we have more data. We have data, and more than 100 million people have been vaccinated. We've got the data, folks. The data says pregnant women should definitely be vaccinated. And over the next week, I expect the CDC is going to recommend who those who should get the booster shot should be recommended to get that booster shot.
But if you got vaccinated, you're still being protected. So there's nothing
Absolutely.
About there.
Remember, right now the pandemic is basically a pandemic of the unvaccinated. 98% of the people in the hospital are not vaccinated, but that 2% are people who maybe the vaccine yet fully takes. So the answer is unvaccinated people are the ones that end up in the ICU on ventilators, and you can easily fix that by getting your shot.
Absolutely. All right, it's time now to call in with your questions for Dr. Zorba Pastor.
If you have a question you'd like to ask, the number to call is 270-9933. Zorba, stand by, and we'll get to your calls right after the break.